Welcome, everyone. As we mentioned, as you're starting to prepare for our session today, just find a space that is cozy. You want to have your feet on the floor or be sitting on the floor, one or the other, just so you have that groundedness. Turn off your phone if you haven't already. Maybe close your blinds, get some water. I always like to add a little aromatherapy or light a candle just to set the tone and create the ritual. And when we create the ritual, it tells the brain, oh, this is time to do this practice. So, ritual is pretty important in all kind of spiritual and faith traditions, but with meditation, we can set our own ritual, and that's always a nice thing to do. Okay, so welcome to mindfulness meditation. Actually, I'm going to start there for just a second. The intention of this series is to give you the tools and practice to protect yourself from stress, be more present, activate the relaxation response, and regulate your emotions with mindfulness meditation. I think most of you on here have been with me before, and we've done this together. So I'll kind of go over the basics of it, but won't go too deep into all of that. Mindfulness is a quality of mind or mental state. It was popularized in the West by Jon Kabat-Zinn. He defines it as the awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And that's the key, is the non-judgmentally. Many of us know how to be aware of our breath, be in the present moment, but then we're telling ourselves a big story while we're in the present moment. And that's really the key to mindfulness. And then meditation is the practice that can help us be more mindful. So this is more like strength training for the brain or fine-tuning your instrument. For the purpose of this series, we will be doing both. So when we practice mindfulness, we're being aware of our current thoughts, feelings, and surroundings, and accepting this awareness with openness and a curiosity in a non-judgmental way. We're kind of back behind the scenes being the observer. And when we meditate, we're learning to concentrate, to focus, to hone our skills. So you can think of like when we're tuning, for those of us who remember tuning a radio dial, you're tuning in, you're fine tuning into the station. So it's being really more focused and precise. With continued practice, we become less stressed, reactive, fearful, and anxious. If you have tried this practice before and felt like you couldn't do it because you could not stop your thoughts, you're in the right place. That's how all of us start. That's how most of us spend a majority of our time when we are doing mindfulness and meditation practices. The key is that when we practice it, we're finding the space between the thoughts more often. And also we have the awareness of when we go offline and we know when we're coming back, rather than just being lost in recursive thought. So this is where the practice begins. And each time we catch ourselves drifting into thought and bring ourselves back to the present moment, that's our goal. Because each time you do that, you're strengthening your mindfulness muscle and you are creating new pathways in the brain. So this allows us to respond to situations differently. It creates some space around things that may trigger us or gives us a new perspective change or a shift. And all of that is good for stress. So benefits, obviously, decrease in stress and reactivity and negativity in general, depression, anxiety, illness, pain, and psychological distress, and an increase in emotional regulation, attention to detail, empathy, compassion, productivity, connection, resilience, and wellness. Such a tall order. Okay, so tell us how you're feeling in 2 words, a little 2-word check-in. Remember, part of this is, we build community and connection by sharing a piece of ourselves. And so while sometimes it can feel a little bit vulnerable to pinpoint where you are and share that in a group, you're in a safe place to do that. So if you want to look at some of the feeling words over here and give us, okay, maybe you're feeling, for me, it would be a little relaxed today and I would say relaxed and calm for me today. Interested, confused, grateful, relaxed, grateful and calm. Excellent. Need this. Yeah. So when we pinpoint, then we're able to connect what's going on in our emotional life, where we are, have that awareness. And then the next part of this, okay. Yeah. Good. The next part of this is to notice where you feel it in your body. And sometimes for people who are real cerebral and real intellectual and they kind of stay up here, they have a hard time sometimes feeling what's going on in the body. In yoga, we say that we carry our issues in our tissues. And so there is a mind-body connection. And every time we do that deep belly breathing, we're bringing a connection to our mind and body. But you can do it just by paying attention and labeling where you're feeling, what you're feeling, and how and where you're feeling it in your body. So I've heard it said before that an emotion is like energy in motion. It's the emotional state that we're in. And then the feeling is where you feel it in your body. So that could be happiness, feeling warm and fuzzy, or overwhelmed and you feel muscle tension in your shoulders. Or maybe if you're stressed out, you feel anxious and your tummy is upset. And having that connection is being mindful of what's going on. And then when we have that mindfulness and that awareness of how we are feeling and where we feel it at the beginning of the session, then we can bring awareness to that at the end and see how our practice has benefited us in just the short amount of time. Okay, so let's start with our belly breathing. We always start here. It's the easiest place to start. It brings us from a stressed or even just, it doesn't have to be like complete overwhelm, but even if you're just a little bit anxious or overwhelmed or feeling a little bit of pressure, the belly breath will allow us to shift into that relaxation response, the parasympathetic system. So if you'll close your eyes and put your hands on your belly so that you can feel the breath move in and out. Usually in yoga, we breathe through the nostrils because that's the cleanest breath, but feel free if you feel like you need to take a deep inhale or exhale out of your mouth. It's totally fine. And as you breathe in, you're going to sip in that water through your nose, just like you're blowing up a balloon or someone's blowing up a balloon, and your belly is the balloon, and you just completely fill up your belly cavity with air. And you should feel your hand extend out as you fill up your belly. And then as you exhale, you're dropping the belly button towards the spine as you push out all of the air. Allow your jaw to be softened. Your eyes are relaxed. Notice if you have any tension around the temples or the forehead. Release that. And just let your shoulders drop down the back. Notice if you're carrying any tension in your legs or your hips or your glutes. Deep belly breaths. Unless you've had some sort of training with diaphragmatic breathing, you most likely breathe up here in your chest. That's more of a pant. It's a stress response. It's kind of a shortened breath right up here. But when we breathe diaphragmatically, it oxygenates the entire brain, the entire body. It soothes the vagus nerve so that we can get back in that ventral vagal state, which is the state where we have relaxation, receptivity, calmness, the ability to choose our thoughts or our actions. Now, on your next inhale, I want you to sip in a little bit of extra air when you get to the top and you think you can't breathe anymore in. Just breathe in a little bit more. And then when you exhale and you feel like you can't push out any more air, I want you to push out just a little bit more air. Good. Okay, so let's stretch a little bit so that we can move the energy in the body. We don't want, those stiff and achy muscles to be tight when we're trying to do our meditation. As I've said before, the whole reason that the asana, the physical postures of yoga, which we really concentrate on in the West, came to be was because that the yogi masters, 2000 years ago, when they would sit in meditation, they realized, oh man, our bodies are hurting. And so they started stretching before they did their practice, and they noticed they could sit longer. They realized they were carrying energy, stuck patterns in the body that was preventing them from reaching the consciousness that they wanted to reach. So stretching is always an important component, even if it's just a little bit of a stretch. 5 minutes of a stretch will help you sit in your meditation posture longer. So we'll start with just some head circles. And it's more of a head circle than a neck circle. So imagine you're drawing a circle with your nose. And then we're always adding the breath with the movement. So we're going to inhale up and exhale down. And with each rotation, you want to extend your reach so that you're able to stretch a little bit further and a little bit wider with each rotation. And then we'll reverse the direction. Inhale and exhale. If you find those sticky spots, like you're like, oh, that's where it hurts, give yourself a little TLC. Go ahead and rub your neck. Stretch it a little extra. Lean into it. What we ignore just gets worse and festers. So if you feel like you've got an area that's really tight, rather than like, oh, I'm not going to stretch that because it hurts, that's what you want to lean into even more and pay attention to even more so that it doesn't become a chronic issue. Good. And then bring the hands back behind your head. Stretch back. So we're just pulling the elbows back as we look up. Come back to your belly breath. And then exhale, round and drop your elbows down and let your hands just gently press your head down. So you should feel a release in the back of your neck. It should feel good. I always say that we don't want to go to ow in yoga. If you're going to ow, you've gone too far. So find the spot, the sweet spot where it like hurts so good. You feel the sensation, but it's not painful. And then we're going to inhale, look up, exhale, round. Inhale, look up. And with each breath, our extension and our flexion becomes a little bit wider and then down a little bit deeper. Good. And then drop. Let's roll the shoulders a couple of times. So no wimpy rolls here. You want to roll all the way forward, all the way up, all the way back, and all the way down. Use the breath with the movement. Inhaling up, exhaling down, and then reverse the direction. Good. And then inhale, bring hands to heart center, all the way up, reach back, and then we're going to twist to one side, look over that shoulder. So you want to keep your ears in line with your shoulders. You're not leaning forward or leaning back. Your spine is straight. And you're just going to twist to the side here. Then notice if that twist feels a little stuck, I'm twisting to my right side. I'm going to bring my left knee forward just a little so that I can twist a little bit more. You'll notice your body will open up, give you a little extra space. And you don't want to squeeze that twist. You don't want to be kind of compressing it. The more you extend up through the crown and root down into the sit bones, the easier it'll be to twist. And then we'll go to the other side, arms up and twist. So you'll notice that first twist will feel a little tight, a little sticky. And then we soften the breath and we soften the belly. We release the muscles and then shift the opposite knee and foot out a little bit. And allow yourself to twist a little further. Notice where your shoulders are. Are they up by your ears? Are you clenching fist and clenching your jaws while you twist? Because we don't want to be. So unclench. And then back to center. And then you're going to bring your knees out to the side. Toes are pointing out. And then just hinge forward and let your head hang between your knees. So you go all the way down, head hangs down. You should feel a good stretch and release in the lower back, in the mid back. And just let your body hang. And then slowly come back up. Good. And then we're going to cross our left ankle over our right knee. So this is that figure 4. Your ankle and knee and hip are at a right angle. Whoops. So they look something like this, right? This would be your knee. This would be the ankle. This would be the hip down here. And then hinge forward over. You should feel this in the hip, in the left buttock, in the piriformis. So the piriformis is that muscle that grows along the bum. And it's a lot of times where we feel pain, especially if you have any kind of sciatica pain. And then we'll switch sides. So now your right ankle goes over your left knee. And your right knee just falls down to the side so that you feel the stretch in your hip. And then come forward. Don't forget to breathe. Release any tension there. Notice where you're still holding the stress, usually up here in the shoulders and the neck. And then we'll just extend left leg out and roll the left foot around. Point and flex the foot a couple of times. And then the other side, right leg out. Roll the right foot around. And then any last little stretches that you feel like you need to do. Roll your wrist maybe a little. And we are ready to do our practice. So our posture for our meditation is sitting straight with our back like an arrow. Legs can be crossed if you're sitting on the floor, or you can just put your feet flat on the floor. Shoulders are open and relaxed. Chin is tucked in slightly. Eyes closed or gazing down in front of you. Your tongue can be held gently, very subtly against the upper palate, but not pressed firmly up there. Lips slightly parted teeth unclenched. You want to embody the flow of a river with the stability of a mountain. There's an old Zen proverb that says, let go or be dragged. As we go into this practice, I'm going to cover two more foundational elements of mindfulness. They are acceptance and patience. So when we think about acceptance, sometimes we think of it as like a really passive giving up, resignation. But that's not what we're really talking about here. When we talk about accepting things as they are, it's just not being in denial, not trying to force things to be any different than they are. Because when we force the present moment to be different than what it is, that's where stress happens and suffering happens. So acceptance is not about resignation. It's about the courage to look at the situation and say, yes, I have this problem. Just like someone with a substance abuse disorder might have to have the acceptance and the awareness of the problem before they can do anything about it. That doesn't mean that they just roll over then and say, well, I'm an alcoholic. It means they go, oh, I have this problem and now I need to do something about it. And in that way, we can face things head on. The strange thing about acceptance is that by giving up all this energy that we usually use to lie to ourselves about what's happening or fight with ourselves, sometimes once we accept it, it's like the situation just changes and resolves all by itself. And then another mindfulness foundation is patience. Patience is a form of wisdom in its own right. It demonstrates that we understand and accept that sometimes things must unfold in their own time. So just like a child may try to help a butterfly emerge by breaking open its chrysalis, usually the butterfly doesn't benefit from this. The adult knows that the butterfly can only emerge in its own time and that the process cannot be hurried. So when you see yourself being impatient, see this as an opportunity to practice mindfulness. Become fascinated by the kind of thoughts that are popping into your head, asking yourself, wow, is this true? What are these effects having on my emotional state? Some examples of some ways that you can practice acceptance and patience, very simple. For example, if you come up to a yellow light, rather than speeding up to go through it, just pause at the yellow light. Or maybe being okay with the shopping line that you're in and not feeling like, oh, I need to change to that line because it's shorter. Or perhaps listening without interruption, even if someone is starting at the beginning of time with their story, just listening, accepting the moment as it is, and being patient. And then notice what comes up. What is the brain doing? What are the physical symptoms that are happening? So when we're mindful and we can bring awareness to it, that's when we can change these patterns. So today we're going to practice mindful listening, and we are going to start by paying attention to the sounds you hear outside of the room you are in right now. So I just want you to take a couple of moments to label and notice without judgment. Next, you're going to bring the awareness to the sounds inside the room you're in. Notice and label, and just be patient as you're listening. Now listen to the sounds inside your body. You may hear your heartbeat, a system that's working, or your breath as it enters and leaves your body, or maybe even your thoughts. Just notice and label with patience and acceptance. Now you may ask yourself, as I notice and label these thoughts, who is the one that hears these sensations, the sounds, and who is the noticer? Now, if you want, you can open your eyes. Take a couple of breaths. So some ways that you can incorporate this into your day is by practicing having mindful listening during conversations at work and at home. You've probably had some kind of training on this at some point in your life. I think all people probably need it. But how often do you realize maybe you've asked a question of somebody and then you didn't even listen for the answer? Or someone has told you a story and you started with them, but you haven't been able to stick with it. We call that an intention drop. So you'll see it when you're talking to someone and all of a sudden they just they're lost. And that's a good sign that they haven't heard you and it's time to ask for clarification or go back. And when you see it in yourself, to say, I'm sorry, I just lost my attention. Could you repeat that? And actually, that's really a way of honoring somebody because it lets them know that you value what they're saying. It's not that you're being, we all do it. It's natural. And especially in this age of being more distracted, it's really helpful to have that awareness and then be able to say, hey, I need you to repeat that. And also, our children, when they're like tapping at us or saying, mom, 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 and we don't hear them because we're distracted and not listening. So those are 3 really easy ways to practice mindful listening at home. A great way to just make sure that someone knows that you're actively listening is to set aside distractions, put down your cell phone. They've shown that even when we have our cell phone and then we just put it down face down on the table, that still feels like a little bit of invasion, right? So if you're at dinner with someone, put your phone in your purse because even on the table face down, it still feels like they don't hear me. They're distracted. They're paying attention to something else. Giving the eye contact is important. Notice for those attention drops and ask for clarification or ask for repeat. Take some breaths and notice the temptation to want to interrupt, to add to give input when someone else is talking, and just allow yourself to, instead of feeling like you have to, because that makes them feel like they're being heard, instead just allow them to have that space. for you to really listen to them, because that feels more kind than anything. And then notice your feelings and thoughts, and drop any judgments. So that's probably the hardest part about mindful listening, is dropping the judgments, because a lot of times we're hearing somebody talk and we've got this formulation about what we want to say, how we can add value to it, or how we can fix the problem, rather than just waiting till the end and then kind of creating some space and saying, okay, now what? Because we can get into those old habits and old responses, and sometimes our old ways of fixing something or adding input to it is not really what is required. Let's see, and then paying attention to nonverbal cues. So these are all ways to incorporate mindful listening into your day. I want each of you to try it. I'm sure you have already done some kind of practice like this before, but if you haven't, it's really interesting to see, especially the not wanting to interrupt or finish a sentence or add to or go, because we think that that is a way that we're showing that we're engaged, but really just listening is the best way to do that. So that's our mindful listening practice. And now we're going to do a little counting the breath meditation. So this is pretty simple, and it's a great technique to center the mind and develop concentration. You're going to be counting backward from 20 to 0 and synchronizing the counting with your breathing. So you'll count the even numbers as you exhale and the odd numbers as you inhale. So you'll start with the full inhale, and then as you exhale, you'll mentally say 20. And then inhale, 19, exhale, 18, inhale, 17. So we do this kind of counting the breath meditation when we do yoga nidra as well. It's a great way to center the mind and focus. But it's also really points out how much our brain gets distracted and starts thinking about other things, because the key to this one is whenever you are distracted or you stop counting or you think of something else, what you're going to cook for dinner, or the fact that you need to go to the cleaners, or did I send that email? Then you start back over at 20. So it's not, the goal here is not to be perfect at this. The goal is to find when you have ventured off and then come back. And what I usually find is that if someone tells me that they made it from 20 to 0 without any distraction, then that tells me they were probably distracted the entire time and didn't even realize it. Because most of us have those thoughts going on in the background, and no matter how much you practice, they're going to be distracting you from the counting. But some people don't have the awareness of it yet. So we're going to start with that. Just when the mind wanders, bring it back to the counting and the breath. The awareness of the wandering is exactly what we're looking for, okay? Because that's where our attention is moment to moment. Start with just closing your eyes, sitting in your meditation posture. Let your breathing be natural and not forced in any way. So we're not trying to control the breath here. Trying to get out of the way of the breathing and just count the breath. So take in a full and gentle inhale. And on the next exhale, you can start your counting. Now you can stop your counting. If you want to, if the chat is available for you to let us know where you got to before you drifted, that can sometimes be pretty revealing. For me, I think it was about 12 when suddenly I thought, oh, I need to make sure and talk about this or whatever, right? Okay, 13, not bad, not bad. When I first started counting the breath meditation, I noticed it after like every 2 seconds. I couldn't get past like the 18 and then boom, I'd go off. Then just notice how you feel more centered and calm, and familiarize yourself with this feeling. So this is our natural state, to be more calm, centered, grounded, focused, present, less stressed, muscles relaxed. And once we find it, then we can get back to it more often. And then for this last couple of minutes, I'm just going to ask you to sit in stillness. Let your mind do whatever it feels like doing, and let your breath do whatever it feels like doing. And we'll do that for about 2 minutes. Then you can open your eyes. We're going to do a little self-check. So now that we've practiced mindfulness, we've done our meditation practice, just describe where you are now that you have taken this time out to do some self-care. Notice your mood, your emotions, where you feel it in your body. Hopefully the muscle tension is gone. The tightness in the jaw is gone. The overwhelm has lessened. And even if we've gone from, a stress level 10 to a stress level 8, that shows you that you can get there with your own mindfulness, breathing, a little stretching, and a little counting the breath. How beneficial that can be for you. And then just a few reminders and tips that the more you practice mindfulness and the meditations, the more able you're going to be able to achieve these states of mind. So it's just like anything else that we do. Consistency is key. And if you want to get into the habit of it, setting time for that specifically, planning it in your schedule. If it's important to you, it will be part of your schedule. Remember to set the tone, get yourself in the right space for it. I find that if I'm really distracted with my work and feeling overwhelmed, if I just sit down and try to dig in, then usually it's going to take me longer to get everything done. But if I go and spend 5 minutes seated, doing some, breathing, getting my mind in the right place, then the rest of the day is going to go better. So it will actually save time and make you more productive to put this in your day. I really like anything that Jon Kabat-Zinn or Rick Hansen has some like 1-minute mindfulness things on YouTube that you can watch. I'm just going to put his name in the chat for you guys. The Calm app is still my favorite of all time because it's got so many different kind of things, from yoga, actual yoga, to meditations, to mindfulness, to background theory, to sleep stories, Headspace, and 10% Happier. So those are some of the resources that I love. And I have some free things on my website. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. And I hope you all enjoyed your practice today. So namaste, everyone. Welcome.